So I thought I'd do a quick video because obviously I started doing a few videos on TikTok just to help people and see if there were any interest in what I was talking about. I know tons of people are doing it anyway, so really I just started posting videos to help, just to offer advice on my own experience, because Jesus Christ, do I suffer with anxiety, but what I didn't realise you could even receive private messages. I'm such a technophobe and a noob at all this sort of stuff that I hadn't realised I had a whole plethora. I've seen that loads of people had viewed my videos and there'd been a few comments here and there, but genuinely not seeing that tons of people had messaged me. So I read through some of them and noticed that primarily people were interested in what medication, if any, that I take at the moment. If I'd taken meds, if anything, it helped, and also side effects as well. So I tried all of them really: mirtazapine, citalopram, sertraline, clonazepam, a whole mixture of SNRIs, SSRIs, and antipsychotic meds. Whilst I wouldn't say I've ever had I wouldn't say I've ever been sort of schizophrenic or anything like that, I've certainly had episodes of anxiety that have made me feel like I'm probably borderline psychotic, like thoughts that just aren't normal, paranoia to the level where it's got so high that I'm thinking of things that really just are fucking weird, like they're not normal thoughts. I thought when I was younger and I had episodes of anxiety that my parents were trying to poison me. I've thought in the past, obviously that's fed into relationships in the past where I've been really quite controlling because I've not trusted people. So when I look back, a lot of my thought processes have been on the verge of psychotic. And so when I've had severe flare-ups of anxiety or almost nervous breakdowns, they have really been, not just a bit of anxiousness or a couple of panic attacks. Like when I was at my worst, I was having back-to-back panic attacks that never ended really. I'd have a panic attack for an hour or so, full rush of adrenaline through my body, like tingling everywhere, heart racing, heartbeat in my throat sort of thing. And it would get to the point where that would stop. I'd have half an hour to relax, and then another one would come and another one would come, and that went on for about a year and a half. I tried antidepressants, and I don't want to make flippant statements because obviously I'm not a doctor, but I've tried probably more meds than any doctor. And what I would say is, whilst my mood was low because I was anxious, I never felt like depression was the reason I was anxious. Doctors, I go and they say, well, that sounds like depression. I was low because I was so anxious. So I felt unhappy because I was fed up with battling with being anxious every day. It wasn't like I was unhappy or I was anxious because I was unhappy. It was the other way around. I was unhappy because I was anxious. And so it felt like giving myself something to increase, restabilize serotonin and things like that wasn't really what I needed. Every time I took an antidepressant, it gave me more energy, and that was even more nervous energy, and it had almost an opposite effect where I would then become manically anxious and have so much energy. It almost like serotonin syndrome, where you have too much serotonin in your brain, and I was like a lunatic, like so anxious, like I was like a bee, like I would have to run continually some days, like almost jog for my whole day just to jog off the adrenaline that was pumping through my body because I couldn't sit still. So I read a lot about antipsychotic medication, specifically Quitiapine was one I looked into, and I went to the doctor and I said, look, can I have it? He said, I can't prescribe that for anxiety. And I sort of basically was quite blunt about the fact that I was having some pretty weird, wacky thoughts because the anxiety was driving me nuts, really. And I was like, look, I feel psychotic. I've watched videos on people, the thoughts that are in my head are not normal thoughts. They're not just I'm low, I want to kill myself. They're things that clearly aren't true, and I know that within myself, but in the moment I believe them 100%. So I started on quetiapine, and for about a month I felt pretty awful, but then for the next year and a half, I could do anything. Nothing could stress me out. I could take on 1,000,001 commitments and it would go over my head. I wouldn't care. It removed the highs and it removed the lows. There was nothing. It was just baseline, Jamie, I don't give a shit about anything. You know, I could watch a family full of people in a crash in front of me and I wouldn't feel a thing. I wouldn't feel sad. I wouldn't feel happy. I'd feel nothing, you know. That's obviously a theoretical comment. That didn't happen. But it's an example. And I thought, you know, this is great, you know, because I can throw myself through anything without it affecting me in the slightest, but I can't go through life feeling nothing, really. Luckily, my baby was born and you know, it forced some dopamine through into my brain, and that was happiness like I didn't think I could ever feel again. And really that's what forced me to start coming off quetiapine was it was the fact that I wanted to feel something, and it didn't feel much. You know, that it had taken a child, a baby, and then I can't at the moment, even now, because I'm not fully off them. I can't. I don't really wake in the night, so when it comes to helping in the night, unless I'm still awake from the day before, late, which I am most nights, I can't help through the night, because once I've taken my tablets and I've gone to bed, I'm out cold until I've had at least 6 hours. I can't wake up, really. And it impedes my life quite a bit. Like, I can't do certain things because I can't take the tablets whilst I'm out, because I will then fall asleep at the wheel. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to the meds, but all in all, the other thing, antipsychotic medication, and I don't like to trigger anyone or worry anyone if they're on it, but drastically decrease your life. So many comorbidities come along with them. I've worked in psychiatric settings, forensic and children and everything like that, and the amount of extra problems that come along with taking them, if there's any way you can get off them, you have to. They're a means to an end. Taking an antipsychotic or an antidepressant is safer than killing yourself, so the doctors make an evaluated decision to put you on it. But what they then do is leave you on it far longer than you should be. And a brief explanation of how. I won't go into antidepressants because I want this to be mainly about antipsychotics, because that's what I'm on at the minute and it's fresh in my mind. But essentially you have something that pumps out chemicals and something that receives chemicals. When you take an antipsychotic, it will pump in tons of dopamine. It will sort of flood your brain with chilling chemicals, to keep it simple, and it will not allow that, you know, that receiver to suck any of it up and pump it back into your blood system and get rid of it, basically. So when you take like an antipsychotic, it chills you right out. You're just nothing phases you. But the problem with that is your brain doesn't really have to. You're artificially giving it something, and so then it becomes desensitized, it becomes blocked, whatever. But when you come off an antipsychotic, obviously these blocked receivers that are stopping like norepinephrine and adrenaline and stuff from getting into your body, they slowly become unblocked, and you slowly stop getting this sedating effect from this tablet as well, and it's like a 7-fold thing. So suddenly these norepinephrine receivers and adrenaline receivers, the things that basically make your heart go and give you energy, they're suddenly really receptive, because they've not had that for God knows how long. They're like sucking it up big time, so they're pumping loads of nervous energy back into you. At the same time, you've not got the kick of dopamine to sort of dope you up and sort of chill you out. So you've got none of this coming from this antipsychotic anymore, and because the antipsychotic blocks the effects of norepinephrine and adrenaline and stuff, you've also got loads of adrenaline. So you've taken away a sedative and you've added a stimulant to the equation. And so that's why when I say if you can get off them, get off them. But the best way to come off an antipsychotic, so that you've got the best chance of being off it permanently and not going into remission, is to taper it so slowly. Don't listen to some idiot doctor who says come off it in a month, unless they're getting you off it quick for a medical reason, like a physical medical reason, a heart condition or cholesterol or something, because again, antipsychotics are notoriously bad for raising cholesterol, for diabetes, heart conditions, things like that. But if you've got room to play with, the best thing to do is shave the tablets down, cut them off a tiny bit, so that slowly these receivers start prickling up a bit and start receiving these messages, and slowly you drop down the sedation, and it's so that you can cut. It's like a controlled, gradual thing, and your brain recalibrates as you go, rather than just remove it. It's like an alcoholic. You'd never advise an alcoholic to quit alcohol cold turkey, and smokers, I went cold turkey with cigarettes, but goddamn did it make me feel awful when I quit smoking weed. Cold turkey made me feel bloody awful. Had I done it gradually, I probably could have come off it quite easily, but I done it immediately, and it gave me a rough 6 months or something. So I am on meds to answer all the questions. I'm on quitiapine, an antipsychotic, not really for psychosis, for extreme anxiety, but my interpretation of my anxiety was that it had a bit of psychosis involved. And I don't really agree that unless you feel you're depressed, I don't believe antidepressants are the key for an anxiety disorder. They're very, very readily prescribed, but I don't think they work. It didn't work for me anyway, but it's not all about me. Maybe they do work for some people, but I've seen plenty of people with anxiety disorders, friends, colleagues, and I've chatted to them about it, and I don't know many of them that found that they got much relief from anxiety from an antidepressant. I do know that they got relief from other things that do slightly different things to the brain, and the effects of an antipsychotic on anxiety are quite effective, but I think due to the fact that they've got black box warnings and they're not overly safe is probably why doctors avoid doing it at all costs. And I think what they should do is prescribe them, get you on them, but get you in some severe talking therapy whilst you're on them and get you the right help. But they just still don't quite know how to deal with it. But yeah, and in terms of the withdrawal from the quitiapine, I'm not feeling great. My body aches. I feel a bit nauseous on the side of anxious a little bit. I think it's a bit of anxiety that's making me feel nauseous. I feel I've got a thumping headache on and off, and have had for about 3 or 4 weeks. I'm snapping at things I wouldn't normally snap at. I'm a miserable bastard anyway, but I'm more miserable than normal. I'm snapping at things that normally would currently go over my head, and I hate all those aspects of not being on quitiapine. But it's not worth it for everything being a blur. The memory fog, like I don't remember. I've got a bad memory anyway. Quitiapine removed my memory almost entirely. I could never tell you what I'd done in the morning by the afternoon. That every day was just like one big drunken blur, and just not feeling enough, not feeling alive enough. I look forward to that. Even though at the minute I feel anxious, at least that's a feeling. I feel something. I feel anxiety. I feel nervousness. Whereas a month ago, 2 months ago, when I started tapering, I felt nothing. But my advice is use it if you need to, but don't stay on it longer than you need to, and always use the lowest dose possible that you can get away with. But yeah, so that's kind of it really. I think to take away from this, I would say just never listen to that's an awful, I've got to stop saying that because I get myself in trouble. Take doctors' idea of tapering medication with a pinch of salt, because I believe they bring people off medication too quickly, because they have so many patients, they don't have time to keep seeing them all the time, reassessing it. I think they chop you off of it. They say, yeah, give it a month, come off of it, you'll be fine. A month is not enough time to let your brain recalibrate from something that might have taken you 2 years to recover from on the medication. It's just not long enough. But yeah, it was actually pretty awesome to see messages asking me about that, to give me something to reply to, because to be honest, I thought, oh fucking hell, no one's seen these, and if they have, they're not interested because no one said anything. And I realised actually quite a few people have messaged me asking me questions, and I love to talk. I love the sound of my own voice, so yeah, if there's anyone who asks me about ADHD, about generalized anxiety disorder, about psychosis, about quitiapine or any sort of medications. Like I said, I've tried most mood stablers, antidepressants, antipsychotics, so I have experience with coming on and off of them and with how they affected me personally. So I'm always happy to fire up another video. Gives me something to do when I'm sitting around feeling anxious like I am right now. But yeah, that's it. Cool.